Everyone has a story to tell. Welcome to DingoTalk, where we explore the experiences that make us who we are. Here's your host, Carlo Guadagnino.
What's going on, Chuckleheads? I am Carlo Guadagnino. This is DingoTalk. My guest this week is the head football coach of SUNY Brockport, Coach Jason Mangone. I had to make sure I got that right because last names are important here. Before we get into Coach Jason's story, we're going to talk about Brockport and where it is. Brockport is in Brockport, New York. It's got 7,924 students. It's $27,000 before aid, $16,000 after aid. They have a 76% acceptance rate, a 68% graduation rate. Their top three majors are registered nursing and becoming a registered nurse, psychology, criminal justice, and as I say every week, make sure you talk to the coach that's recruiting you, make sure you talk to your guidance counselor, and make sure you talk to the admissions people at Brockport if that's where you're interested. If you want more information, you can go to www.brockport.edu. But without further ado, it's my job to let Coach tell his story and the story about Brockport this year. So without further ado,
what's going on, Chuckleheads? I am Carlo Guadagnino. This is Dingo Talk. My guest this week is the head football coach of SUNY Brockport, Coach Jason Mangone.
Yeah, well done, well done.
You see, hey, it's very important, as we talked right just a minute ago. It's very important to get names right.
Yes.
Coach, we're going to do this the same way we do every week. First, I want to say thank you for taking the time. I know this is that spring ball time, so it's a little busy. We're going to do this the same way. I'm going to put you in the time machine. We're going to take you back to 95. We're going to work our way to today. So how did you find yourself in 1995 going to the College of Brockport?
Well, actually, I first went to Alfred University. So
Okay.
I went from high school and went to Lancaster High School out in Lancaster, New York, and found myself at Alfred U and loved my experience there. But ultimately, I wanted to coach, and I thought, the closest thing academically to coaching was physical education. And I decided to change my major and obviously ended up here in the fall of 97. So I was 2 years at Alfred U, 2 years here. And, so phys ed really was the kind of the catalyst that got me here. And some buddies, Josh Vendetti, Pat McDonald, were two of my teammates from high school that were already here at Brockport and had nothing but good things to say about it. And I came to visit, fell in love, and the rest is history.
No, it's interesting because right around the time where you were getting into going to school was kind of where the coaching degree itself had kind of fizzled out and worked into the phys ed. And
Yep.
I think some programs even there's a RAP and there's a RAC. There's all types of different recreational and all that. But that was what that was, right? Is the coaching degree moved into phys ed.
Yeah, you got automatically certified in your phys ed degree with the coaching, which is kind of what I was looking for. And certainly now we have coaching minors, so kids can, major in business, which is one of our biggest draws here at Brockport academically. And the kids that do play sports will usually minor in coaching, which is cool. But I went all in and got my phys ed degree and in doing so, got my kind of coaching certificate and whatnot, and started coaching here at Brockport.
Well, thank you for leading me into my next question. So how hard is it for a guy that, 6 months earlier was wearing the pads and had the helmet on to then, I'm assuming coming spring ball, right? You started to roll right into that GA coaching role. What's the difficulty when you're going from being a player to now coaching guys that you were teammates with just a year earlier?
Yeah, and it's something that I was obviously kind of concerned with. And what made it easy is first having the good relationship with the guys that were on the team, right? So now I'm coaching guys that I directly now played with a couple months ago.
Yeah.
And I think because of who they were, it made it super easy. They didn't make it awkward. They called me coach, right? They never slipped up and called me by my first name. And that, I guess maybe just through effort and want to as a player, maybe earn the respect enough that they didn't deem that they could kind of, pick on the young guy or the former teammate. So that made it super easy. And just knowing that I had Rocco Salmo, and our old head coach, kind of his stamp of approval that would give me a position that young. Also kind of gave me the confidence that, listen, I don't know everything, but like anything else, we're gonna compete and we're gonna give max effort, and I'm gonna learn along the way and do the best I can. But I think just the players were so cool that it made it very, very easy for me.
Now, as you're going along through, so from 99 to 03, you're an assistant. Then from 04 to 12, and in 12, it's kind of a big year for you, right? Because you're 04 to 12, you're the offensive coordinator. 12, you get your master's degree. I got to ask you, why the pursuit of the master's? And I've noticed from the head coaches that when they get a master's, it seems to be in that athletic administration field. Does that open the door for you if the coaching door closes, you're able to get into being an athletic director, being a sports information director, those type of things? Was that a factor in why you got your master's?
Well, I guess the first part of that is that the reason I got it in 2012 is I actually tried to get it earlier. But there was a stipulation in the athletic administration master's that I didn't know about, that you had to do a full-time, no other job internship for an entire semester. Oh. Well, mind you, I'm taking 1 or 2 classes a semester. So now come my third year coaching, I'm full-time. I can't take 6 months off. I just can't do that. So I'm halfway through my program and I stop. Well, then later on, they changed it. So they alleviated how many hours you had to do. Still demanding, but nowhere near a full-time position. So, well, then because it was beyond 5 years out, I had to start over. So I actually have, I think, about 17 classes passed, but unfortunately I had to start back at ground zero the second time and redo it. And luckily enough was to be able to finish in 2012 and do my internship during the summer and got it all completed. The reason I actually did athletic administration is, again, anything related to sports, I'm definitely into, but I wanted to get as much education as I could on kind of what goes on from an administrator role that now I'm possibly dealing with as a coach, right? Like, so what are some of the challenges that our administrators have that I think as a coach, you always fight for your program, which every coach should do. You're not always going to be told yes. So when I get told no, maybe it gives me a little more of a lens, and a different lens per se, and a better perspective of why I'm receiving no. And then it also gives me a better opportunity. If I'm going to fight for 5 things, maybe I go with the best chances of the 3 that I think I can get.
Yeah.
So that's kind of why I did it, more or less than anything. I just wanted to kind of know what it would be like as best I could through education to kind of find those challenges they have.
And now, before we get into the, this is going to be a 2-part question. So you do your 2 years at Alfred, you then come to Brockport, you're there for your 2 years, and then you start into your coaching career. Before you make the decision, or before the opportunity presents itself that you're going to move up to the OC position, why have you stayed at Brockport for so long? What has kept you? Because I mean, I think a lot of people, when you think about the coaching carousel, and we make the joke, it's that a coach can be really good and have a slip up, and that's it. Goodbye. Coach can be really not good, but he keeps a program. They graduate the right guys. They do, and maybe the results don't come on the football field, but they stay around. So what has kept you? Because resume-wise, you guys have had some real good years, and I'm sure that you have had emails and phone calls and whatnot from other levels and other schools.
Yeah, I think the big thing is the opportunity to be successful. And I've always believed in this place. I feel like we have location-wise, we have price-wise, we have academics, we have faculty. And I think, within the last handful of years, we have facilities that can really compete at a high level. And for me, this is a very time-consuming profession. It is a labor of love, certainly. And I have a loving wife, and I have 2 children that are getting older. And, currently my son's playing a baseball game right now that I'm not at. And so there are sacrifices that have to be made. And in order to make those sacrifices, you have to be at a place that you believe in. And for me, it has to be a place that I think you can be successful at. And doesn't mean everything has to be in place to guarantee a national championship, but you have to have the tools that you can
Yeah.
go and talk to a young person and say, listen, that we have what's needed. And if you buy into our vision, we can accumulate enough young men like you that we can be successful.
Mhm.
And, I deem, this is a personal view, our last 3 seasons have not been to par that we expect. And that's frustrating. And nobody wants to win more than the guys that are in our locker room and in our office as coaches. So, we're working diligently to find ways to not be 8-3 again. And obviously, it takes a lot of hard work to give you a chance, and then it takes execution to fulfill that opportunity. So, but I think that the easy answer is I believe in this place to be successful, and I think we can certainly win at a higher level than we've shown.
Now, Coach, we're going to come back to that. It's an interesting perspective from the coach's point of view. So in 2012, why was it? Well, first let's go 04. Why was it time to move up? Is that the clear trajectory of a job? I want to get to the top of my field. So then the logical step is the next move up.
Yeah, I think so. And I think for me, it was kind of a crossroads of, I'm going to coach football. Where is it going to be at? And is that, again, one of my biggest mentors, outside of Rocco Salomon, who I played for and worked for so long, was Len Jankowicz, who was my high school coach, who was, essentially my second father. Mm-hmm. So when I knew I always joke when I say this, but I knew as a fetus, I wanted to coach, right? Like I knew I wanted to coach from the jump. I fell in love with every sport, kind of what was going on. And maybe, because I had, as a smaller guy, I had to really know everything in any sport I played to give myself a chance, because maybe I wasn't the best physically, stature and all that kind of stuff. So I fell in love with that aspect, right? And then you meet a guy like Len Jankowicz at Lancaster, who's a legend. Mm-hmm. And you go, I want to be this guy. Like this is who I want to be. I want to emulate everything I do that he's done. And so then you go, okay, well, I'm going to go be a high school head coach. And so in that 04 range, I'm getting in my low 20s there. And I think I was 23 or 24 at the time. And I kind of went to the coach and just say, hey, listen, I've applied to a job at a high school and I don't want more money. I don't want anything here. I'm just telling you so that you can prepare to bring somebody else in, or, at my position, which was currently the quarterbacks and receivers. Yeah. And then, about a few days later, he called me in and told me I was going to be the OC. And I was like, well, that's not what I wasn't trying to get that. That wasn't what was my goal. Mm-hmm. But then it was like, wow, if I can do this, then certainly I would love to do it. And, had the blessing of the OC at the time, who stayed on mm-hmm. staff for a while and maintained his position group. And I thought it was a kind of a happy marriage. So I stayed.
And then when we get to 2012, how does the head coaching position come about? How does that conversation start? And when did you know, yep, this is the next step and I'm staying here. This is my place.
Yeah. Again, another, with the blessing of Rocco, who was the head coach, I applied to a few jobs, because then at that point in my career, it was like, okay, well, we've been here a little bit. We've had a little bit of success scoring some points, and maybe I can try to go on. And if I'm ever going to do this at somewhere else, this is the time. And so I applied, and, I'm not going to mention the schools, but had an interview and got to the final 3. And, I came back from that interview, which was at a great institution with some great people. And Rock came to my office and told me he was going to become an administrator and I was going to become the head coach. And he had mentioned, being an administrator, and would, kind of rest his soul right now. He was going through major health issues. Mm-hmm. And, so there was a little bit of caveat to it then too, that he wasn't fully in health. So, so then we talked about it, and what really helped me too was that he stayed in the football office that he had for 2 months after, so okay. I probably came in here maybe 5 of the 5 days a week to just ask this, that, and the other thing, and until he moved to his other office. But that's kind of how that came about too.
Well, and the reason I asked that question that way was I've noticed in the last, I guess I would say maybe 3-4 years, I believe it was Carnegie Mellon kind of brought a guy on staff that he was the guy in waiting. Grove City just did it recently in the last 2 years, where they kind of shift, or 3 years, they kind of shifted. And then I think is it Wabash this year that their head coach in waiting is on the staff, and there's a happy kind of medium there. So I was just interested how when you're going up the ladder, how the staff thing changes over.
Yeah, and the kind of, if you don't mind me just kind of sharing this, like I owe a lot to Rock, and I mentioned him a handful of times already because, he gave me a lot of autonomy.
Yeah.
First you trust somebody that's, 21 to come over and be a full-time guy. And then I'm 24 and I'm the OC. And what, I always say, like, people ask me, like, were you ready for it? I'm like, well, do you know if you're ready to be a parent? Then all of a sudden you have a baby, right? Like, well, you better be ready, and I know obviously as a coach it's drastically different, right? But you prepare yourself to become ready, but ultimately, do you know until you've been given that position? So it takes that trust from somebody else to say, listen, this is your time. He was that guy for me, and he let me coach. He didn't micromanage me. He never, I think one time as an assistant for him, he told me to run a play one time. And, so to have that kind of confidence, I think speaks volumes from a guy that did as well as he did, and, kind of the person he was. So I think, yeah, and the reason I mentioned this is I think maybe he groomed me to be, whether it was here or not.
Yeah. He was preparing you for down the road, what you were going to be.
100%. So I kind of owe a lot to him in that respect.
Coach, before we get into the 2023 season, and I definitely want to address your comment earlier with not living up to the standard, just back and forth as my brain's going. Put us in the room. We're a fly on the wall with a parent, with the recruit's parents or recruit themselves. What are you saying to them? What is the overall message that, hey, if you and you already touched on it, if you buy in, and we have a bunch of guys that are like you that buy in, we're going to be a really good football team. What else? What's the draw? What's the draw for Brockport?
Well, I think one of the big things is I'm brutally honest. We're trying to get the right people in our program. So my message when I present to the group can kind of come off strong at times. And I have to always kind of take a step back in my presentation. Like, I hope I'm not scaring people. But at the end of the day, you have to know what you're getting into, right? We say this is not a 4-year commitment. This is like a 70-year commitment. We want you to come back. I tell my boss, and he's gonna be mad when he hears this, but I tell him all the time, I'm not good at fundraising. I don't do well at asking somebody for $1, but what I'm not ashamed to do is ask you for your time. Yeah. Come back and watch a game. Come back to a practice. Interact with our guys. Like, I want you to come back and be part of this, not just because you gave us, $100 check or whatnot. So when we recruit somebody, we're really recruiting them for longevity. And it's one of those deals where we are a competitive-based, effort-based program. Everything we do is full tilt. So we are making sure that I guess the first part of your deal is I'm telling you what we're looking for. We're looking for kids that are, for the proverbial dog, right? The guys that will, you knock me down, but I'm getting up faster than I hit the ground, right? Like, I'm going to fail. I'm going to have setbacks, but it's not going to deter me from being successful and coming back harder. That's who we are as coaches, wholesale, and that's who we want in our program. So if you're not that guy, it will not work out. Yeah. And we're just making that clear. What we have is we have affordable tuition, right? We're 23 all in. And I think when you're looking at today's age of what it is cost-wise, that's not even a fraction of what some places tuition is. No. So when you ask me why Brockport, that's also a big reason, right? I can talk to a young person and go, listen, you're going to get a college education, oftentimes nationally accredited, depending on what you're majoring in, for $23,000 rather than, X price somewhere else that may have an equivalency degree, may give you a view of certain property or this and that looks great, or, it may have this major. And if you're going for X major, then maybe, you pay that price to go for that school. But it generally, what we see is the majors we have kids want, business being, one of them, kinesiology, exercise science, athletic training, phys ed, all those are other ones. Facilities have taken off. We've put millions of dollars into our stuff. So we have some of the state-of-the-art $42 million field house. We have an $8 million upgrade to our stadium, brand new video board, the whole deal, right? And then I think just who we are as people, right? And I tell people all the time, we have great things here,
Mm-hmm.
but I think every college has great things.
Yeah.
I think the people that are inside our locker room are what's our biggest sell, and we have great kids. So if you are a competitor, you are somebody that wants to earn, not be given, and you are somebody that can get yourself off the ground when you take a step back, then you're going to be a guy that fits well with what we do.
Now, in the 2023 season, 8-3, 5-1 in the conference. Good for second in the Empire 8. Obviously, the team that won the Empire 8, national champion SUNY Cortland.
Yeah.
I find it interesting with your comment earlier that the standard wasn't met this year. When I looked down through the schedule, I remember the Susquehanna game. I watched that game. That one was an ugly football game, but it was a tough football game. It was one of those, go back into like the 1930s. That's what football was like. It was just ugly and a battle.
Yeah.
The other loss is to Cortland. The third loss comes in the bowl game to Carnegie Mellon. The rest of the games go the way of Brockport. What was your takeaway now that the dust has settled? We're out of 2023, moving into 2024. What was your takeaway from that 2023 season? And specifically in the Susquehanna game, what happened? Why was it such a defensive battle?
Yeah. That's a tough one. I try to forget that game even exists. I'm sure offensively on both sides, right? Two, defenses that played obviously very good football. And that one hurts. We just didn't execute. You know what I mean? And it comes down to obviously being able to, I'm not, Susquehanna's a great team. I mean, this is a heck of a football program, and we just, quarterback for us is something that we're still trying to figure out. Okay. And and a lot of that is me. It's not necessarily the quarterback. I coach the quarterbacks. I am the offensive coordinator. So this falls on my shoulders, and I've got to get those guys ready enough to play at a higher level. And those guys are working their tails off in spring ball and making great strides and are just as hungry to be successful. The tough thing is we have played a young quarterback the last few years. And it's just tough for young guys. There's a lot to digest. You're in a new environment. You're in a new setting in terms of structure, in terms of terminology, and asked to do a lot against some good teams. Those three teams you mentioned were three outstanding football teams. And but kind of my comment earlier is that's who you got to beat. Yeah. When we went to the national semifinal, you're taking down Wesley, who was outstanding. You're going on to Del Valle, and another unbelievable football team. And so to beat these teams, you got to beat if you ultimately want to be as good as you hope. And our Empire 8 schedule is outstanding, and we did beat some good teams this year, but you got to beat all of them. Yeah, we're in a nasty deal. This is not you go 500 and you get into your conference tournament, and if you have a good 3 days, you're in the playoffs. That doesn't happen that way. No. Our sport is cruel, but it's also what makes it so awesome. I would want it no other way. I don't want to be 500 and have a good weekend and make the NCAAs. That's not what I want. I want to be good for months. We want to be good for years on end. And that's what good programs do. I always talk about, do you want to be a good team or do you want to be a good program? Teams come and go. I don't want to be known by what we did in 17. I want to be known what we do every year. Yeah. And that's sustainable success. When you talk about the elite programs at Division III, and there's many of them, they're good every year. That's why you know who they are. That's what we want to be. We're not just want to be a flash in the pan. So, we've got to find ways to get out of this, 8-3 deal and obviously beat the elite teams as well.
Now, I'm going to go back to recruiting for a second, because I've noticed in New York, and one of the other former guests pointed it out to me, that there are no D2 schools in the whole state, correct?
Well, not anymore, because LIU went to 1AA. So yeah,
So
there's
it's
no
your D1, D1 double A, and then the rest of the schools in New York are D3. What's the recruitment look like for you? I mean, obviously you're recruiting the local like the area around the school. And then
yeah.
what's the radius? Does it go, you guys go national, or are you looking more like a tri-state?
We do road state, right? The whole state on the road. And then, you know, as you know, social media gets you national in a heartbeat. So we do have, you know, we have a quarterback from Florida. We got a receiver from Philadelphia. When we have out of state kids, you know, and even though there's no D2s in New York State, the D2s recruit this area.
Yeah.
So the PSAC is everywhere, right? They're all over this area. Not all of them, but some. And you know, and again, a lot of kids, they love that opportunity to play at a high level and a scholarship level. And we tell them all the time, listen, if that's what you want to do, absolutely, you know?
Yeah.
Because the downside is a lot of times they're going to pay more to go to those schools than to pay in-state tuition to come to Brockport. So if a kid, that's what he wants to do, by all means, just don't forget about us. Because if it doesn't work out, you know, we're here. You know what I mean? So you keep that relationship, and obviously I would never be mad at somebody for choosing somewhere else. If everybody chose Brockport, we'd have 900,000 students. It wouldn't work.
How are you playing everybody?
There's we can't. Yeah.
So there's only 33 places that people can play. Like
it'd be impossible. So you have to, and that was probably the hardest thing I had to learn as a young coach, because the young coach is the hungry recruiter. And I the first few times I heard no, boy, I did not handle that very well. Wasn't mad at the kid, but when I hung the phone, I'm like, man, what did I do? Like, but you're not content with hearing no. But at the end of the day, we're not made for everybody. We just hope we're for all the good ones. That's all. But you know, but we are heavily recruited. There's a lot of 1AA sneak in here at Division IIs, and there's a lot of good football. You know, you have to win your backyard. We think that's about 200 to 300 miles from campus, and then we are throughout the entire state.
Now, when it comes to, like you were saying, you talk to a guy, their goal is to try to go 1AA or Division I, and you tell them the door's open. Is that how you guys are using the transfer portal? More or less, people you've already contacted, and now you see them come back in. Hey, what's going on? Are you still interested? Is that how that conversation gets going?
Yeah, I would say so. You know, I've discovered as the longer I do this, I'll be going into year 26 in the fall. And there's two things that everything revolves around in my life, and it's relationships and definitions. And I had this conversation with somebody else the other day, right? So everything revolves around a relationship. And I think in recruiting, you know, I think people choose more the people than maybe they do the place. And I could be wrong. But I feel like the kids that we've connected with the best are the ones that ultimately have chosen Brockport over maybe somebody else. And I think definitions, right? Not to get in a tangent, but how you define something and how I define something could be drastically different, right? So how I define hard work and how an 18-year-old out of high school right now defines hard work can be on opposite ends of the spectrum. So it is very clear that we get hard definitions out there to our kids and define this is what we deem hard work is, because what you did is not going to pass the test for what we're given. So I think we have to define everything, right? Because I think that's with the day and age that we're in. And there are a lot of tremendous young people out there. And as long as your definitions are very clear and you make a solid relationship, maybe kid doesn't come year one, but maybe he comes in year 3. So, you know, we're always going to keep that door open.
And then with you being a guy that transferred, does that help you with certain guys? Like when a guy is looking to transfer, is it easier for you? Like you were saying about getting the admin degree, so that way you can look at things from that broader scope. Does that help you when you're recruiting and you say, well, hey, look, I transferred. I understand the first one might not work for whatever the reason is, but there's a home for you here.
Yeah. Because I also think too, that some people innately think a kid transfers because he's given up.
Yep.
That's not the case. Right? Like not everybody leaves school A to go school B because they just, I'm not playing. Well, that's not the case. Some do. And that's certainly always going to be something that happens, right? And it doesn't make them a bad person. But I think the reality is there's a million different reasons why somebody's going to transfer. We have a young man in our program that transferred in this spring because he's got some things going on at home and he needed to be closer to home.
Yeah.
So like, this is a full scholarship kid. left a full scholarship because he
Wow.
needs to be closer than 7 hours away. He's now 1 hour away. And he's been able to go home on the weekends and take care of things that he needs to. So I think that perspective for me transferring is certainly a big one, because we don't always go to the negative.
Yeah.
The negative always sometimes goes to the forefront for people. And I'm certainly, at fault that for some things, but not in this respect. And I think, also having that administrative lens through education and being on some different things that you kind of mentioned earlier. I've been on a lot of things administratively in my time here as a younger worker, has kind of helped me with that process also. How do you get this kid fast into registration? How do you get him into housing? Who are the people you're contacting, right? So some of the good things about being around as long as I have is I know a lot of people here. So I may not have every answer, but I know who to go to within 3 seconds to get said answer. So that's kind of the benefit.
Now, rolling into 2024, and before I get your perspective on what we're looking at for the 2024 season, a couple changes coming. 40 team playoff, which I think a little long overdue. There are a lot of teams. We weren't meeting the minimum number for the teams versus, and then the big one that I didn't realize until last week, had gained the traction, was the ability to have 18 iPads on the sideline with there's a specific two companies, I think, that are going to run it. It's not going to be huddle videos, but what are your thoughts on this? The expansion and then the addition to the technology.
Expansion, I love, right? Like opportunity. At the end of the day, we're all competitive. We all want to win. We all want to hold that trophy. But at the end, it's also about student experience, right? So the memories I have are so dear to my heart in playing. I would have loved to have played more football games. And, you look at some teams last year and the year before and so forth, they're 9-1. And you're not in the playoffs, right? And I go back to other sports, and I'm not just kind of use it as an example. There's teams that records are not fantastic, but they're in the playoffs, right? Because the structure allotted the opportunity. Why wouldn't we want that opportunity? To me, it's a no-brainer. Anybody that's against it, it is what it is. But I think the opportunity for kids to play is what we all should be in for, and I'm all about it. So I'm ecstatic that we're going to 40. And then in terms of the iPads, we're still finding all the details out ourselves. We're going to have a conference meeting as head coaches here in early May and kind of talk through it. Bill Schuster oversees our conference as an official. He's an NFL official. He's phenomenal. So he gives us all the kind of the literature. Our Empire 8 commissioners are kind of help us walk us through it and kind of find out all the details. And then our ADs have their meeting a couple of days later. So we'll have this thing ironed out soon, but I think it's pretty cool. We've already ordered the tablets, so we're on it, and we'll figure out how this whole thing works. And I'm sure it's going to be an advantage for those that can obviously digest. I'm trying to think how I'm going to do it, right? I'm the head coach, call plays. I don't really leave the white, quarterbacks come to me. How much am I looking at this? Now, the coaches on defense, they probably prefer that I don't get in the way anyways, although I don't, because I don't need to. They do an insane job. So I know they can take care of their business. But, in terms of timeouts and all that stuff, it'll be interesting holding an iPad, looking down and being engaged with any of that kind of time management stuff.
And then the last one on postseason play before we start talking about the expectations for 2024. Do you foresee conferences? I think you guys you guys got an ECAC bowl this year, but the Empire 8 has a series do they have a series with anybody, or is it?
We did with the Liberty League. And
okay.
It kind of, I think it expired or whatnot. I'm not sure the details of why it got extinguished, but we did have one for a short period of time.
Do you think that we will see that with more conferences? I know the PAC and the OAC are getting together. I know that the ODAC, I've heard the ODAC and that USA South might start to have a little bit of a battle. I know the Isthmus, I think it's the Isthmus Bowl. They're the Wisconsin teams, and and I believe up in New England now there's going to be a bowl game. Do you think that's something we're going to see grow in the Division III game?
I would hope so. I mean, again, look at our spring season, right? We're allowed 16 days, 16 helmets, 4 days with uppers. We're still not playing full football.
Yeah.
I go out in the same time in the fall, we walk off the practice field and I see lacrosse come out and play full lacrosse. How is that any different than football? Right. So if we're not going to have the opportunity at our level to play football in the spring, how dare us not take the opportunity in the fall when we're allowed?
Yeah.
Like, to me, if you give us 12 games, we'll go play another bowl game. Let's keep going. I don't think we need to stop, right? It's about opportunity. It's about playing the game we love, because again, what makes this thing so special is when your last day comes and goes, the helmet gets handed in, you never put it on again. And I think it's just something about that. It's cruel, but it also makes it very special, you know. And I was talking to a kid today in a whole different sport, and you know, just kind of asking him, he's kind of hemming and hawing about working out. And I'm like, who wouldn't want to be the best version of themselves? So you're going to look back in 30 years and say, man, I wish I would have kind of done X. But you're here. Don't be me at 47, right? You can't get those days back.
Nope.
You take advantage of them now. So if we can get 11 or 12 games, I played 9 games my senior year. We didn't have a 10th game.
Yeah.
So I already feel that I was robbed of a game, you know, that season.
In comparison to what they do now.
100%. You know, these guys are playing 11. We played 9. I would have died to play 2 more games. So I think whenever there's an opportunity to play, you will always have a yes from Brockport.
Well, and it's ironic. It's ironic that you say that with once you take the helmet off, because, you know, nothing against soccer players, basketball players, volleyball players. You need a court and a pair of shoes, and you can go. Soccer player, go ahead, put your shin guards back in, and you can go run around. There's Sunday leagues all over the place.
Yeah.
What do we have? You get flag. And flag football might get a little feisty depending on who's playing, but at the end of the day, you're never putting a jersey on. You're never putting a helmet on. You're never putting those pads on unless you make it to the next level or whatever that may be. So it's very interesting that that's kind of where the mentality is.
And I always say this when I'm talking to other people and other coaches, and our problems are different than other teams' problems. It doesn't make our sport better. It just makes it different.
Yeah.
So the issues that we have in spring non-traditional it's a problem, in my opinion, because if we were allotted full pads, I think we could do so much more safety for the game and teaching properly how to tackle, right? But we're not given those opportunities as much. So now you can't. And then in the fall, you play pretty quickly and you've got to get your schematics in. So you're certainly working on fundamentals, but you can really hone in on just your fundamentals so much longer in the spring. Whereas I think people just think we're going to beat our heads in. No
coach wants that. Nobody's out here in 2024 running their guys like, hey, we're going to do an old school Okie. Everybody line up. This guy's here. 20 yards. Go ahead. And let's see what happens. It's not happening anymore.
And who wants to get a kid injured?
No.
Like it breaks your heart when a kid gets hurt. From the team that you're playing to, like nobody wants anybody on their team hurt. So like I just wish we could kind of break that barrier of why at a higher level, because they're receiving money, can do spring ball, but we can't because we're not giving money out. It's just goofy to me. I don't know. It's just, I wish I had a better rationale of reasons why, but I could tell you we did it in COVID. How do we do it in COVID?
It worked in COVID, right?
We practiced with pads in the spring that year. That's bizarre to me that we were able to do that, but we can't now. So
practiced, and I believe certain conferences had games like full-blown.
So to me, it's we proved we could do it. Why did we then get away from it again? But who am I? I don't know. Anyways,
what are your expectations and I think I know a couple of them, but what are your expectations as we wrap up the semester? We're getting ready to send everybody home for the summer workouts. And then before you know it, August is here and we're at camp. What are we looking for from Brockport this year?
Yeah, I think what I said earlier is you're going to see a lot of effort. You're going to see some competitiveness. I think you're going to see a higher level of play. And we've played in areas have been outstanding, right? Like defensively, I mean, you just go down a laundry list of things that we've done really well. And offensively, I think you're going to see a better, highly tuned offense back to what we've been, and again, we're not going to play as of today, a young guy. Now that could change if one of our young guys comes in and earns the job, certainly. But we're doing a lot better right now in the spring with our passing game, which has kind of been our little Achilles heel. We've run the ball well. We have an arsenal of tailbacks. We got a good group of linemen coming back. We graduated some studs, but we got some good ones coming back. Receiver, we're going to be arguably better than we've been in a very long time, which is really exciting to say. We got some dynamic kids. We got some speed. We got some good ones coming in. So I just think the big thing, as long as we pay attention to details and obviously prepare and kind of blend personalities, I think we'll be very, very competitive.
Any surprises on that 2024? I know you got the 6 games in the conference, but are there any surprises in that non-conference schedule?
Well, it's the same as last year.
Okay.
We'll open up on a Thursday night home against Buff State, which is awesome because that's kind of like a little, I-90. We're an hour apart, right down the 90, which is a throughway. And then, we're going to have a battle week 2. We're at Susquehanna, who I think is going to also wish they put some more points up on the board, although they scored more than us in an ugly game. And a really well-coached, very talented team. So that's going to be a war. And those are the games, you play those. You mentioned Portland earlier, right? Another game we're playing week 9 at home, and other ones. I could name a lot, but it's like these are the games why you come to Brockport.
Yeah,
you're going to play some very good football teams. We got our non-league for 25-26, which hasn't been released. We got some new teams we haven't played in a while that are really good, which we're stoked about. One place that I've never been to. I've done this for so long and I haven't been to one of them. So we're pretty excited about that. So, we're going to try to play some top tier talent within our region. And if it makes sense travel wise, which these do. But we're excited about, obviously just getting back in the fall and having an opportunity to kind of start over and kind of, we're done licking our wounds from last year and figure out how we can get better for next year.
Coach, the last question before we get into the 5, what to you is the significance of Division III, specifically Division III football?
Yeah, I will. It's dear to my heart because I played it. I think it gives guys, and I always spell this, and there's nothing wrong with intramurals. There's nothing wrong with recreational sports, but we are not that, right? No. Division III, I think the perception for some, and I always say, and I can go on a long tangent here, so cut me off if you need to, because I talk. But I feel like some people look down at Division III at times because of social media, right? There's pressure on young people to get the offer.
Yeah.
And
signing day.
Yes. And to post said offer. And not just the offer, but this is my 87th offer. Right. And if you're one of those that are blessed to receive offers, God, that's great. Right. I'll help you pack your bags and take you to wherever you want to go. But there is a home and a place for a highly talented athlete that didn't get the offer. Our left tackle has a chance to be in the draft this weekend, right? 6'7", 318. Like, that's not a small cat now.
Can't coach that.
Yeah, you can't coach that. I mean, our tight end this year was our MVP, 6'4", 240, arguably the best player, one of the best players on our team. He's absolutely a higher level cat. Raylan's Boot played corner for us, 4-year, rookie of the year as a freshman, player of the year this year, made every All-American team you could imagine. He's 5'9.5". If this kid's 5'11.5", we would never even know who Raylan's is at our level because he'd be at Division I. Kick and dunk a basketball with ease. As a kid's a freak. So there are talented people. So I always, I kind of preface that by saying, like, the best players from the high school teams traditionally are Division III athletes. It's a rarity that a kid goes Division I or Division II or, whatever the case may be. So it's a high level of football, even though it is non-scholarship. And it gives those guys, the Jason Mangones of the world that were 5'9", that could throw a ball okay. It gave me an opportunity to play. But what I also will say is this, right? Have that dog, that D1 mentality. Just because you're playing D3 don't mean it's any less of an effort. And we're going to try to give you as close of a Division I experience as we can, off the field and on. So I think it's just a great place that a young person can get a great education at many, many great schools. There's so many good places out there with so many great coaches. We like to think that, we're one of them and, play a high level of football.
Coach, I actually have had broad answers from that. The gist of your comment is what I've gotten. It's not intramural sports. Quit thinking it's intramural sports, because the main difference is on the outsides, it's not as fast, still fast, but it's not as fast. On the interior, your guys are big. They're just not as big. They may be a little slow on a step. They maybe didn't hit their growth spurt until their sophomore or junior year of college. And then all of a sudden now they're, like you said, you can't teach a guy to be 6'6", 6'7", 6'5", 300 pounds at all. You're not greatest coaches in the world, but you're not teaching that. That's talent. That's what he was given. And then 100%. It's the coach's side to mold that, right?
Yes, 100%. And that's the thing. So like I always encourage kids and parents to, that have these Division I dreams, and by all means, have them. Don't close the door on Division III. Go see and I always, and again, I go my tangents, right? There's high school football, and there's good high school football.
Yep.
There's college football, and there's good college football.
Mm-hmm.
So you may live next door to a team that maybe hasn't been on the right side of winning for a while. Go find a team that has.
Yeah.
Go to a game. Go watch pregame. Go watch the kid that's not starting and how athletic that kid is. Go, man, am I better than that kid? And be honest with yourself. Look in the mirror now. It all starts there. Mm-hmm. Because personal trainers, and I'm not knocking this whole deal, but if you pay somebody, they're going to oftentimes tell you how great you are. Right?
Yeah, because
you're giving some dose. Now, when you come here and there's a little bit of reality kicked in, and I'm kind of jumping you a little bit because you didn't do what we asked you to do, and you give me that look of like, wait a minute, my trainer don't yell at me like that. Well,
he's not supposed to.
Yeah, but so you got to just be honest, and I think that you got to. There's water always finds its level, and there is a place for everybody. You just got to find that place.
I think as we were talking, I just had another one pop into my head because I thought it would not be a good thing to not ask you this before we go, or we get into the 5. Do you hold, as the head coach, are you more, and I got to think of how I want to word this. Is it mean more to you with it being that you wore that jersey? You've gone through the program as an assistant, the OC, and then the head coach. Is it more of a buy-in for you, and you want to get everybody bought in because you've seen how much Brockport has offered you?
Yeah, I 100%. And I always say this too, and I may have mentioned this earlier, like, who wants to be known as a loser?
It's true.
Nobody, right?
Nobody.
So when you use the word Brockport, for me, I'm 47 years old. I got here. I've spent over half my life here.
Mm-hmm.
So when you think about when you leave, and I heard something the other day that hit me harder than I can ever have thought, and it was somebody had mentioned there's more games behind me than in front of me.
Wow.
Right? Because we always talk to our seniors, and that's who I always think about when a season ends, right? When the season comes to a conclusion and they have no next year.
Mm-hmm.
Well, my next years, I have fewer in front of me than I do behind me. And so, there are obviously goals that, I have set for this program, and I don't really kind of talk too much about them, anybody else, but I want to achieve these goals. And my days are, I don't want to say numbered, because I still feel young and energetic and whatnot. And they're still giving me paychecks, so I'm allowed to come to my office. But, but I don't have maybe as many days as I do behind me. Mm-hmm. And so that pride of not only Brockport, but the legacy that we leave as a group of men for the next group, whatever that time may be, or next year and whatever else, means a lot to me. So when I hear people use the word Brockport, I want to be some respect behind that word.
All right, now I can roll into my 5, knowing that I asked you everything that was on my list, and awesome. I don't have to hear it from the editors saying, "Well, we got a question here. You didn't ask it." All right, Coach. This is the Fast 5. If you could live anywhere in the world, where would it be and why?
Well, that's a great question. I'd say my Italian heritage. I would say Italy, just because I've never been, and I would love to go visit. Well, I guess live there. Yeah. Get some pasta couple times a week.
What's the most important lesson so far over your career?
Never treat anybody like anybody else. You never have ever walked in somebody else's shoes. You never know what they're going through. Maybe what they had happened today, last week, the week before, what's going on within their family. And I will never make a rash decision based on what's happened due to not knowing the context of where they came from.
I like that. If you weren't coaching, what would you be doing?
Listen, I got to give a shout out to Jay Johnson, one of my good buddies. He was signed by the Steelers here back in 01. We're boys. He is like MacGyver, the guy. You give him a piece of gum and a toothpaste, and he'll make a car. He has shown me a level of carpentry that I cannot do myself, but I have tinkered. And if I could do it all again, possibly going into carpentry, because he just watching him, maybe I was paid to watch him do it. I don't know. But I have fallen in love with just working with wood and stuff like that and small projects. So maybe that could lead to something bigger if I could do it all over.
That's interesting. That's interesting. A lot of lawyers. I will tell you, there's a lot of head coaches that have said, "Oh, if I wasn't coaching, I'd be a lawyer." And it's one of those things like, that's too easy of a joke, guys.
I ain't smart enough to do that now. I know my limitations, right? There's always got to be self reality.
You gotta look in the mirror and say, "I can't do that one."
And if you want me defending you, I can assure you that. I can debate, maybe I can argue, but I don't know about the mental side of it.
I can debate too. That doesn't mean that I could take 8 hours or 6 weeks and understand case law from.
No chance. No chance.
Best compliment you've ever received.
Whoa.
This is a 2-parter.
Wow. The best compliment. I don't even know. That is maybe the hardest question I have ever been asked in my entire life. I'm a guy that likes to kind of be behind the scenes. Mm-hmm. So I don't really receive any kind of attention very well. And maybe I haven't paid attention quite like to the degree that I should on compliments, and I get very embarrassed. Because again, we are a long-winded answer here, but we are only the byproduct of how well our players play. And if we have done well, it is 100% because of them. So I can't even give you one, unfortunately. I bailed. So did I ruin the second part of the question now?
No. The other part of the question is best insult you've ever received.
The best what?
Best insult.
Best insult. I got some insults on my beard. Obviously it gets lengthy in season. I let it go.
You got the white in the beard. How can anybody say anything?
I got the gray going on there a little bit.
That's a good looking beard. Right? How can anybody say anything about it? That's a good looking beard.
I appreciate you. Yeah, this I look like kind of like a caveman and mid season because I let it go. But that's probably been one that I've heard from maybe an upset kid if we've won or just whatever else is the beard shot. So yeah. It ain't going anywhere.
What that means? That means that he was jealous that he couldn't grow a beard. He had to take
maybe
shots.
That's my best compliment then. So maybe my best compliment, right? There you go. We'll spin it and we'll use it that way.
Coach, how come my stuff comes in patchy? I can't help you, man. It's genetics. Yeah. I got a beard, you didn't.
Yeah, he took my hair on my head and gave me some facial hair. So I guess I'll take what I can get, huh?
All right, Coach. The last question I've asked everybody that we've had on the show since we started with the D3 coaches, was there a question that you were expecting? And if so, how would you have answered it?
If there was a question that I was expecting, not necessarily. I didn't know what to expect. I can't lie to you. I've watched these. You do a great job and you got some good people on there. And that's kind of, this is the stuff that I found in love with in my later coaching career. Because I was all X and O early, and now I'm all about just people and philosophies and ways of thinking. That's what's changed, in terms of for me. But in terms of a question that I expected, nothing. I love doing these with different people because I hope to get a question I haven't had to answer before. And now I got to think of my best compliment because I'll think of one later on. But maybe there hasn't been enough that I can think of one.
This is another thing. This is another thing with the D3 coaches. There's some underlining self-deprecating humor that goes on a lot. Maybe I didn't hear this compliment, or I had we interviewed Heidelberg's coach and
Brockport
Coach Donaldson.
He played at Brockport.
we're talking about his beard, right? And I said we had Brian Sampson on, who is the athletic director at Bethany College now, and he had probably the best beard that we had to the point. Coach Donaldson comes on, can't argue with that. He got a nice, good beard. I said, you got a good beard. He goes, thanks. That's the first time I ever got a compliment on my beard. I said, well, I don't know if that's true. Come on, man. He goes, well, when you got a head like this, people don't really pay attention to this part as much as this part.
Well, so there you go. Great example. But good dude, Brockport guy right there, doing great things in Heidelberg. We get a chance to speak here and there, but pride of the Brockport Golden Eagles right there.
And I want to say thank you for taking the time and for your words, because they're it's very nice. It's nice. I enjoy doing it. I enjoy talking and meeting with the schools and the coaches specifically, mainly because as a D3 guy myself, I feel like I really undersold when I was a student, because I was so focused on the PAC and not the conferences that go around. Yeah. So this is a learning experience for me. I want to say it again. Thank you for taking the time. We're going to take it to overtime with Serenity Brown, where I have no idea what we're talking about this week, to be completely honest. She makes the topics. So I wish I had better for you, but we didn't plan out the segment yet. So I don't know what we're going to talk about per se. We're trying to teach her football to get into the fall. So when we pick the games, she's not just picking based on I like that name or I like this name. She has a little bit of background knowledge, and I'm going to get real crucified on that comment when she watches this back. Coach, thank you very much. And we will be right back.
Thanks for checking out this episode of Dingo Talk. Don't forget to rate, comment, and subscribe. For more info and to contact the show, you can find us on Twitter @DingoTalk.